Hello, and welcome to the Global Footballer Podcast. So, we're going to do a deep dive into Newcastle United today. Newcastle have had a great week or so, or even more than that. We have ended up having two brilliant wins at St James's Park. The first one against Manchester City, and the next one against PSG. Can you believe that, Monish? PSG. Mbappe came to St James's Park and left with his tail between his legs. 4-1.
So, congratulations, Deepak, on Newcastle United's game. As I mentioned, so basically going on in their season, after the City win, we had this discussion in private where I told you that Newcastle can actually win games better than they are trying for. I felt that they could have won a couple of games that they were trying to draw. And you were quite bug telling me that
Newcastle,
no,
no, we've never tried to draw any
no,
games.
I
That's
meant I
never
meant you were too
actually.
pragmatic against Manchester City in the first half.
That
I
was the
I, I
first
did
half because the
I
tactic
did
just wasn't working.
Yes, exactly. But I what I was trying to tell you is, I mean, they were pragmatic, wasn't it? And I felt that they could do
Also,
better.
the central linchpin for that tactic was Louis Miley, who was a 17-year-old kid who has never played for us before. So he couldn't organize that midfield to press the way Bruno Guimaraes can. So when you
No,
take Miley out and put Guimaraes in,
I
immediate
agree.
transformation.
No, but what I'm telling was somewhere. See, listen to what I'm trying to tell. I understand you are very happy about Newcastle United and Eddie Howe cannot do any wrong according to you, but I think the
Well, I
one
think
thing.
this is a
Wait, let me
position of
complete. Let me
somebody
complete.
needing compliments, but you're looking at it only from a negative viewpoint and trying to see how can I find a fault here, which
No,
is
let me
what
tell you.
infuriates me.
I didn't finish it. So let me tell
Okay,
you.
yeah,
What I
go
was trying
for
to
it.
tell is Eddie Howe, I felt that the only thing that was stopping him from Newcastle or stopping Newcastle from being this elite team was there was something just holding them back. Now I was asking you who are the leaders in the team, who is the guy who's bringing in the passion, who is the leader on the pitch. Let me tell you that guy was Miguel Almiron. All right, there's no doubt about that. The way he was running past, the way he was putting all of his efforts in the PSG game, he showed it. It was important for Newcastle to have this sort of win against PSG because I felt somewhere during these games Newcastle were even doubting themselves. The three losses will have an effect on any team, whoever it is, even if it was Manchester City. One loss against you guys actually affected Manchester City and they lost the next game as well. They needed the next win really badly. Newcastle, somewhere, I felt there was something stopping them. See, they were still, like you were discussing, when we were doing the Premier League, you were telling that is going to end up in the top four. That's what your aim is. I was asking why not win it? Because I think it's about time Newcastle realizes the quality they have. I know I was very much against the club, but after watching the second half against Manchester City and the game against PSG, Newcastle should start accepting that they are in the top three of the Premier League right now,
Listen, Varish, but I think
isn't it?
when Newcastle
Why are you stopping? Why,
fans
why are you
say that
stopping?
we are because we are just not there yet. We are so far ahead of where we should be. The three out of four players who scored against PSG were bloody brought in by Mike Ashley. These were players who were here before even Eddie Howe got here. And the fourth player was Dan Burn. We just don't have the quality or the depth in our squad to compete for the Premier League. I think it's almost ludicrous for us to even say that. Now,
My
the only way we would have an actual run for the Premier League would be if Manchester City and Arsenal just fall off, or
and
if
that can
everybody
happen,
else falls off as well,
and that can
which is
happen.
fine. But asking us to expect to win the Premier League is not where we should be. And then people all call deluded Newcastle United fans. Our delusion is wanting top four. Nobody's deluded enough to say we should be competing for the
No,
Premier League,
but
and not even on the back of beating PSG should we be aiming for that.
no,
Because what we are
PSG this
doing,
season is not the best team that they were, but beating them is a big deal. Ousmane Dembele was really, he had a couple of good chances, but you guys completely outplayed Kylian Mbappe over there. More importantly, what I'm trying to say is just because players were bought by Mac Ashley doesn't mean they are bad players. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They
they
don't
were
have the quality,
They
But
were the same
Almiron,
players who were who were 19th in the league under Steve Bruce, whom everybody said Steve Bruce is doing a great job keeping Newcastle United in the Premier League. And with essentially those same players, Eddie Howe took us to fourth. Uh,
see,
so you can't people can't have it both ways. They were not the best players. We had a squad that was championship level. We got relegated with most of these players. We played in the championship with most of these players. We struggled to stay in the Premier League with most of these players. It was just due to luck that we stayed in the Premier League. And after staying in the Premier League, Eddie Howe has come in and done the sort of job that he will never get credit for, because he is not the sort of player who goes out, not the sort of manager who goes out making hyperbole about himself, or throwing out horrible statements about other managers, or even making it all about himself. He just gives it to the players. He reminds me in so many ways about Bobby Robson. So Bobby Robson was very similar, very understated guy, very a guy who was always keeping to himself, but was an excellent manager and reached the pinnacle of the game because of how good he was as a coach. And Eddie Howe is just proving that he's making players who are championship level, who players who just did not have a future in Newcastle. Even yesterday, after beating PSG, Sean Longstaff said after scoring that goal, he said before Eddie Howe got here, most of the guys who scored tonight were thinking of leaving the club. We wouldn't have been here because we were not considered good enough. And now we are scoring the league. And that's just down to Eddie Howe.
I agree, but this game against PSG, the energy that was shown by Newcastle, they were running and fighting for the second ball. They were fighting to score those goals.
Yeah.
Quite a few of the goals were also because not just the ability, but the hunger for it. I was asking you all the time, where is the hunger? Against the Liverpool game, I was quite
The hunger has
disappointed.
already
No,
always been
no. I'm
there.
just telling you. After the Liverpool game, I was quite disappointed because I felt if see there are some goals that there are some games that are just won because you want the ball more, because you want to score the ball more. Wolves and Man City in point. The second goal that happened, Manchester City defenders were nowhere in the picture. They were not even trying to block that shot. So Newcastle really showed that. Sometimes it's not just the ability, it's also wanting to win more that matters.
That is the
Newcastle,
only reason which has brought us in, because ability wise, as I said before, we are far below most other teams in the league. But it's our pure hunger which is driving us forward. And I agree with you, the last 10-20 minutes of Liverpool were really bad. The Brighton game was bad. But beyond these two games, and even perhaps the first half of Manchester City was bad because we played kids for that first half. But beyond these situations, we have been really at it for this season and even the whole of last season. And it's only been that hunger. And Eddie Howe has this stapled across the dressing room, which is intensity is our identity. And the team plays with that mantra. It's always intense, always pressing at the highest end of the pitch. We can go to tactics if we want later, but the pressing is a joy to watch. That is how a team should press in the final third, which is why we are winning matches. It's just due to that hunger and that need to
I
win.
still think you're selling yourself short because there's a time when you need to believe in yourselves. I know you believe in yourselves as Newcastle United fans, but what I'm trying to tell is it has to come in. The arrogance,
Yeah,
it
no,
has to come in.
it will. It will,
Without
and
a
I'm
bit of
sure it
arrogance,
will.
you're not going to win the Premier League,
No,
and that has to come in.
it will, Monish, but you also have to be patient. The problem is, if you think we have to win the Premier League and become impatient, we'll end up where Manchester United is right now.
No, it's
Completely full of arrogance, but no substance.
oh come on.
Okay, so
Manchester United, I
that
think
will where we will end up being.
no,
We have to
that
be patient. We have to understand that
let's.
overhauling a squad takes time. We have to know that lots of players here are
But why?
approaching the end of their career,
Yeah, but
and
why
it
overhaul all of
needs
it?
not every position has even been signed for since the whole forget the first second choice. Not even a first choice has been signed for every position. Miguel Almiron, you said, is a case in point. He
You
was a
wanted him out
player
of the
who
club. You kept
Mike
mentioning
Ashley
that
signed.
it was the
Yeah,
weakest link.
honestly, I've always felt he was the weakest link just as a player. But with dedication, with heart, with how he plays every day, he's never a problem for the club. But
I
with
I
pure
don't think
talent, it is always been a problem. That side
Agreed,
has never
but
been
but
filled.
I don't think you should lose out on Almiron, because if there is someone who is probably the beating heart in your club on the pitch, it is Almiron.
I wouldn't go that far at all.
Probably the
He
close.
is
Okay, who do you
he
think?
can't even speak
Goimares?
English after being here at the club for 5 years, so he
That doesn't
doesn't
matter.
communicate at all
Bruno Fernandes
with
also doesn't
anybody.
speak decent English.
Uh,
He's the captain.
no, the the
Uh,
the player who completely transformed us is Trippier. He was the first signing under the new regime, and he is the player who has been there, done that at the highest level in football,
Agreed.
and he set the standards for others to follow. He came in and he put in a winning mentality and standards for everybody else to follow, which is what everybody else is catching on to. There are people like Callum Wilson were great examples at the top and sort of helped the pressing and getting the team across the line. And Isaac is just learning that part of his role. He's a great footballer, but he's not a great leader on the pitch. So he's still learning that role. Is learning his role in the pressing. Now, if we were to get into tactics, the reason why I talk about pressing from a centre forward position is because Eddie Howe uses a tactic which is extremely high pressing. So we do a mid block, but we do extremely high pressing. And what Newcastle loves to do is use the sidelines as an extra defender. So the trigger points of pressing is when the centre back or the goalkeeper passes the ball to the right back or the left back, and then that is a trigger point for everybody to go press. Now, this pressing needs to be very coordinated because the centre forward leads that press, or the left winger or the right winger leads that press. And if that press is not coordinated enough, they can easily have a couple of passes and be beyond us and have the ball against our centre backs. uh, this has always been an issue, and the way Eddie Howe has drilled this team to completely understand everybody's role is very, very important, and I think it's completely understated. You said Miguel Almiron was the beating heart of the team. That's probably because he screams a lot after he scores the
Exactly.
goal. When you said, uh, which is great. I love his
He
screaming, and he is passionate player.
no.
There's no question about it.
After that, after no, it's not just the screaming and the running, and yes, because he couldn't really, like you said, converse in English and all of that. But the thing is, uh, if you notice, after he scored, everybody seemed much more happy for him, and there was a bit more
No, he,
impetus in
he
the
is a
game.
very popular player because he works
Among the
hard for the whole team.
exactly,
He works
exactly.
the hardest. He's always been a hard worker, so everybody loves a
So
hard
what I'm
worker.
telling is,
And
you need those players also.
no, that's
And no,
exactly what. So
Deepak, let me complete here.
if we were to go out and get Mbappe, do you think he will work in our team currently?
No, Deepak, let me complete here. More importantly, so there's just one thing. Uh, you keep saying that the team before with Mike Ashley was horrible. Fine, Mike Ashley team was horrible. You didn't have the quality of players, but you need those players as well. You keep saying that we haven't bought enough, we haven't changed enough, and we're still doing well. Now, after Chelsea and Manchester City, when they were bought by foreign owners, they have this blueprint where you completely change the team. Chelsea just went in and bought a completely new team under 10 new players. They had two strong teams, and then they won the league a year later. They came second against Ranieri with Ranieri, and then they won it with Mourinho. Manchester City kept buying players one after another, made a lot of mistakes, then got Kiki, I think Begiristan, Ziki Begiristan, and everybody else brought in the Barcelona system basically the talent scouting in place, and then built up their team, then got Guardiola, and then they were identifying players and kept refurbishing the team and winning. Newcastle United already are doing that without making too many changes, which is a fantastic thing. All right, but don't just rely on buying new players. Now you keep saying that United, okay, arrogance and
Monish,
trying.
it's
No, no,
completely
Deepak, let me
completely the
complete.
opposite
Deepak, let me
of the
complete.
point I
No,
was trying to make.
no, let me
You are
complete
going on a
first.
tangent of the point that I was
Let
trying
me
to make.
complete
But
first. All right, I let you speak. Let me complete first. Newcastle United bought in players that are really doing well in spite of all of this, which is agreed. I mean, but you keep saying that, oh, these are still the same old players. You are mentioning that these are still the same old players. Why not just agree that maybe with the system you can pull off a Leicester here? When was the last time Newcastle won the league? 60 years, 70 years ago? 1955, 56? When was it?
yep. Before that, it was Bears
Before,
Cup that we won in 56.
okay, I don't even, yeah, exactly. You won the last cup. You can probably look for the League Cup. You can look at the FA Cup because you need that first win. And it wasn't the first time Manchester City won a trophy. I think they won the FA Cup, or was it the League Cup? It wasn't the Premier League. Before Aguero happened, they had already won a trophy. It takes time, but before doing anything, you need to win a cup. Secondly, you kept saying like, okay, fine, I mean, just going on a tangent there, you said trying for the big players, arrogance, United. United fans are no longer arrogant. They're just waiting to hopefully, because they have finished six more often than they finished fourth in the last 4 seasons. You come to terms with where you are. Newcastle United also needs to come to terms with where they are. They are in the top four in the Premier League this season. As a team, I'm not saying in the standings. As a team, in their current form, in the way they play, the top four teams this season. Deepak, just tell me who are the top four.
So, yeah, so
Who are the
I
best four
consider
teams?
Newcastle United in the top four teams in the league. That's for sure. I put them in my
No,
predictions
but
as
right now,
finishing
after
within the
after
top four.
after the first few games, what do you think they? Where do you think they'll finish?
So I still think we'll finish in the top four. I'm very happy to finish in the top four. That's my goal. That's what I think Newcastle United should aim for this season. That's for sure. My point about the whole thing is I'm not complaining about players who were there before the takeover. So as a matter of coincidence, today is the 2 year anniversary of the takeover. We are speaking on the 6th of October. Today is the 2 year anniversary of the takeover. And within 2 years, the aim or the publicly stated goal at the point of takeover was to compete for Champions League within 5 years. We are 2 years into the takeover. The club has zero revenue. The club is a shell of a club. We have just struck deals which is not even starting until next year. The club does not have the revenue to even fund our own Champions League experiences. The problem is there is not enough money being generated into the club, which is then going to be spent on players of a caliber that needs to be competing in multiple leagues across the year. So we need to compete in Champions League, we need to compete in League Cup, we need to compete in the FA Cup, and we need to compete in the Premier League, which needs a deep squad. We just don't have the turnover or the revenue to match that at all. And the club is still in its infancy. We are far overshooting what our trajectory was or our planned trajectory was. We just
It's a
don't have to
planned
get there.
trajectory. You can never decide things in
So,
football.
listen, as a romantic, Monish, obviously all of us want our clubs to win, and I'd love it if you were to do a Leicester. Why would you think I would not? That would be more than
No,
anything that I would
my
dream of.
question
These
is
are
are
all
Newcastle
great things to
fans
dream about.
are Newcastle fans worried that if they win the league or win a couple of cups, then the funding will not come at the level that it should?
No, absolutely not. There is no question that the owners are completely committed to this, and there is no question that we have appointed the right recruitment person. So the director of football is Dan Ashworth, who has a complete history of doing this for England
Exactly.
and then for Brighton. So he knows what the game is. The fans are being incredibly understanding and extreme. This is not a trajectory that was expected. We have gone extremely steeply, and we are just enjoying the ride. Uh, Players who were true Newcastle lads, Sean Longstaff, Dan Burn, season ticket holders at Newcastle, scoring against PSG, Fabian Schär, who has been here through the mud. Players like this scoring is all, they're all great stories which make us, nobody's in a rush. But you're right, we will get to a point where we will need to be brutal and we will need to be competing amongst the extreme best, and that would include Manchester City and Arsenal. We are not there yet. We are not there yet by a long shot, and we will need at least a, two full transfer windows. And by two full transfer windows, I mean one summer window and one winter window. Make one full transfer window. We need to at least have two full transfer windows to overhaul the squad and to make sure the squad depth is there, because beyond 15 or 16 players, Monish, I can assure you, you won't be even able to name a single player in the squad from 16 to 25.
Uh, yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, so when you can't even name a player, that's the sort of caliber that we are dealing with. We don't have a squad which can compete on all these levels, and it will take time to bring it up to that level. Uh, And I'm very happy that all this has happened for Newcastle United, but I'm also understanding and patient and extremely grateful for the job Eddie Howe has done. He is an underrated manager of incredible proportions, and I hope people give him the credit one day that he deserves.
I think anyone listening to this podcast will think Eddie Howe is being given too much credit, honestly. I've been listening a lot about it.
Well, the credit has all been from my end. Nothing has been from your end. So
I have given him credit recently.
What do you want to say, Monish?
I
about
said
him?
that I
If you
mentioned
can
that.
bring yourself up to actually give some credit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when you listen to so much credit from your end, people will be a bit tired. Honestly, Deepak, let's just say that.
Okay,
He's
fine.
good man. He's a good manager. He has done really well so far. There's no doubt about that. He's the right person for Newcastle United. There's no doubt about that. And I think he can also bring the club. I had doubts would he be able to be the right person for Newcastle United when they're not fighting for third, but when they're fighting for first. All right. Right now, I think Newcastle United is fighting for third. Would he be the right person?
No
I think
question
he's.
about it.
I think he can still be the person fighting for first. But are Newcastle United fans ready to fight for first? That's the question, because they have to then ask.
We will be
They
when the
have to
time
ask
comes.
harder questions. They have to ask a bit more intense questions.
You have
It's
beaten Manchester City and PSG. What more intense questions do we need
you
to
didn't
ask?
ask exactly. You have beaten them. You have shown it, but you have to ask more
Yeah,
questions.
so
When you lose, you have to ask
and
more
destroy
questions.
the club just like your club has happened.
It's
Self-sabotage. Press the self-destruct button.
Manchester United has not
So
really
it
had
takes
the
time.
self
It takes time, Monish.
sabotage.
You've
United,
said you have not.
You're talking
You
about
said
Mike
Man-
Ashley. No, you're talking about Mike
No,
Ashley.
you've
You
said
know,
Manchester
Deepak,
United has not had time to bring players. You've not brought players in.
When?
Your squad is not good enough.
When did I
you just
mention
said
that?
Eric Ten Hag does not have the players to do
Yeah,
it.
because they've all been
And
injured.
Eddie
But
Howe is supposed to do it with his squad.
no, why not?
Isn't
Manchester
that
United has
contradictory?
no. Manchester United has a lot of injured players. More importantly, you keep mentioning
So
Mike
Newcastle
Ashley
does
took.
not have injuries.
Deepak,
Sven Botman is
Deepak,
injured.
wait, Mike. You keep mentioning Mike Ashley took money from the club. We have had bad
Yeah.
owners as well. Manchester United Glazers have been continuously taking money from the club. Do you hear the fans keep on going on? We keep saying Glazer out, Glazer out, Glazers have
You
not
guys
sold the
don't
club. We
keep
are
on
waiting.
going on. Oh
We are
my.
still waiting for them to sell the club.
The Norwich City stars will come out every season for a few games when
Yeah.
the club is losing, and then
And
when
then
the
they
club
go.
is winning,
They go back.
that goes
They go
on the
back.
shelf again.
Exactly. Because
Yeah,
Manchester United
so-
has too many fans, you cannot really boycott it. There are enough people waiting to get the season tickets. We cannot
Yeah, so-
really hold the owners hostage. That is the problem. It is
What's
no
the
longer a
point
club.
here?
What I'm trying to say is that no, you keep attacking Manchester United, saying that we are not, whatever, having the time or giving enough. We keep complaining about the time not given. We were talking about Newcastle United. I was commending them on whatever they have reached.
Yeah, because
But what I'm trying to no wait, Deepak, you keep interjecting and crying out for Newcastle United. Let me complete here. What I'm trying to say right now is Manchester United on another completely different tangent. Manchester United has not yet. Eric Ten Hag has never had the players to play with. That is what I mentioned. I had a problem with the way he's playing. I say he's tactically is not really good. Now, you were the one who brought in Manchester United here, so I'm bringing them up. But he had injured players. Newcastle United completely, they have the players right now. Whenever they're losing, they should probably start asking more questions of their manager, which they don't
you
ask.
say injured players. Newcastle United has Sven Botman is injured, Joe Linton is injured, Joe Willock who's injured, Callum Wilson who's injured. In
Yeah.
a squad which is comprising of basically 15 to 16 players, we have 4 starting players who are injured. How
Exactly.
many more players do you want to be injured
I'm
before
not
our
saying your
injuries
players
match
have
yours?
to be injured. I'm saying your fans should start asking more questions of the manager.
Yeah, so what
He's still
questions
in
we are
the.
asking?
He's still in
We are
the.
discussing 2 major wins, and all you could say
Exact-
was you should ask for more.
Yes,
What should we
you
ask
should always
for?
ask for more.
Oh God, it's the
That's
most unrealistic take on the whole situation.
yes.
Anyway, yeah, we are not good enough. We'll ask for more. We should fight for more. We should ask for
Exactly.
Eddie Howe out. We should ask for the next guy in. We should ask for Mbappe. We should ask for Neymar. We should ask for
No,
Messi.
Mbappe
we should
might not
ask
really
for
work.
all those great players, and then we should self-combust. Yes, great.
That's
do
not.
that.
That's not where it is. But Newcastle should actually aim for higher. Anyways, that's
Yes,
what
yes.
my take is. So, what do you think is Newcastle's one weakest position, Deepak, that they need to fill in?
I've already said that before, which is centre back and right
Right
wing, which
midfield.
we just don't have enough players there.
Is there anybody that they have identified in centre back, or anybody that you would have liked?
Uh,
who would fit
Currently,
any
I just
house
wanted at
system.
least. Yeah, there were a few players, obviously, which was Tapsoba and Lacroix. All of them would have been really good additions, but Shah has got at least a couple more seasons in him, at least this and the next, perhaps.
And the right back, right midfield.
Diaby would have been my first choice, obviously, but Aston Villa got him, so that's not happening. But Chiesa would be a second alternative to that. He's still in Juventus.
Did you watch the Burnley game?
Against?
Who did Burnley play, man?
Against Luton.
No, before that. What's going on? You guys played Burnley, isn't it?
We did play Burnley. We won against them.
Yeah, I watched that game. What do you think about Kaliosha?
Yeah, he played like 5 to 10 decent minutes against Danburg, and after that he seemed to lose his energy. If he can sustain that level of performance over 90 minutes, then yeah, he'll be great. But he just completely lost his way in the game.
He did, but if there was any good chances coming from Burnley, it's all on him.
Yeah,
Obviously, he
it
has
was
to
all
do
through
more,
his wing. Yeah.
and he has to do more running. But against Manchester United, also he had a very good performance. I mean, yes, he got tired after a bit, like you did mention. But do you think he's the sort of player you want, or someone who's more fitting
No,
into Eddie Howe's
somebody is
system?
honestly Almiron is a perfect fit for the system in terms of pressing. So if you were to get him out and sign somebody else, that player needs to have the pressing of Almiron and needs to be better on the ball.
Why get
So
him out? I mean, keep him and sign someone else. I think that's what Newcastle
yeah, I
should
mean
do.
by get him
Build
out,
a
I mean
bigger
get
squad.
him get him
Exactly.
out of the first
So
11, but
I
not
don't
out
agree
of the
with
club
this.
as such.
Yeah, don't agree with
No,
this
not out of
kicking
the
out
club.
everybody because you
I'm
have a
not saying.
yeah
I'm
you
not
you
saying
have
again.
good
I'm
character in
not.
the club.
I'm
Please
not
keep
saying
it.
kick him out of the club.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
again, we are disputing the same point.
I know. Just keep him in the
So
in the subs and get a newer, probably
yeah,
better
so not
player
not kicking him out of the
attackingly.
club, just
Yeah.
substituting him in onto the bench or rotating them in between.
Okay.
So
All right.
we need a better player there and centre back as well.
And do you think Newcastle should try to win at least one cup competition this season?
Yeah, definitely. We got to the finals of Carabao Cup last season. So if we got to the final, the next step is obviously winning, and it has to be
This
something that
reminds
you're
me
winning.
of England fans when I watched England versus France in Qatar.
Mm.
Just mentioning this, I mean, I'm going on a tangent here. So I support Brazil. So because of my brother-in-law, who was like you and a France fan, I was wearing a France scarf and sitting, and they were so upset. They said, we reached semi-finals in the World Cup. We reached Euros the next year. We have to win it this year. How did we not win it? But I think
Yeah.
Newcastle, all said and done, they have beaten Manchester City, and hopefully if they beat Manchester United, there is a good chance. I think one of the quarterfinals is a club in League One and League Two. So if you can
Yeah.
get somewhere past that, hopefully, and then go ahead, you have a good chance.
Yeah, it's still a long way away, and the next game, as you said, against Manchester United away for us is quite
This
tricky.
no
It's
Manchester
at
United
Old
is
Trafford, so it's going to be quite difficult.
Galatasaray beat
So
Manchester United at Old Trafford. Now anyone can beat them.
uh,
Let's be honest.
uh, who knows? By that time, Ten Hag would have figured out a plan to deal with everything. But either way, at this point, not a single pundit before the start of the season had Newcastle to finish anywhere near the top four, and the reason for that was historically any club outside of the top six breaking into the top four has
Champions League
struggled to
affects
deal
them.
with Europe. Yeah, has struggled to deal with Europe and has struggled to deal with all the other competitions that come in, and then they crash and burn because squad is not big enough. And I'm still worried that that can
The
still
squad is
happen to
not big enough.
Newcastle. The squad is definitely not big enough. So hopefully we can. The injuries have been really bad as well. Hopefully we can survive it. There's a international break coming up next week, so that hopefully by the time that gets over, we'll have some players back. But yeah, I'm quite mindful that we are far ahead of our trajectory and we have a very thin squad. And what Eddie Howe is doing is nothing short of a miracle. So you
Can
can't
I
expect
just
that to.
interject with one thing, Deepak? I'm sure Newcastle is going to finish ahead of your pick for third. Maybe not my pick, but your pick for third.
Again, yeah, that's a given now for sure. My pick for third, for people who are not sure, was Chelsea. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion at this point. My pick for third was a shambolic disaster.
My pick for
Uh,
third probably still fight in the mix. Liverpool is still in the
yeah,
mix. So
Liverpool. Yeah, I think your pick for top four is probably going to,
except for
uh,
Manchester United,
except for Manchester United.
it's quite close. It's good.
Yeah, exactly. I think you had Newcastle finishing fifth,
Fifth.
right?
Yeah, that's only
So
because honestly,
essentially,
I
if you
thought
take off,
Newcastle would finish fourth. Honestly, I
yeah,
mean, I like annoying you, but I thought Newcastle finished fourth. But then I told because Manchester United, I cannot say no. So yeah. Anyway,
right.
so all right,
Anyway,
that's it for today.
yep. So
Thank
this
you.
was a good deep dive in where we disagreed upon the same points multiple times.
Yeah, and I
But
managed to annoy
it was
Deepak.
nice.
Now you know how to. You can probably this was
Press
a
my
discussion
buttons.
on. Yeah, this was a discussion on how to annoy a Newcastle United fan.
Yeah. Start off with negatives and then we shall definitely be annoyed.
All right.
Thanks to Monish for that demonstration. And thank you all for listening. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank
See
you.
you the
Take
next
care.
time. Bye
Bye.
bye.